Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Cairns, and I'm an assistant professor with Nipissing University. And I'm here to share a presentation on behalf of Louela and Michelle Marie, who are also part of this wonderful effort, but are not able to attend today. Um, this is to describe an example of modeling online relational engagement, and we'll be focusing specifically on examples of nursing students in an undergraduate setting. Just to begin, I wanted to acknowledge the land that I'm on, which is part of this dish with one spoon territory of the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee and the New Credit First Nations of Ontario in the United States. And this image here is to indicate that idea of this dish is that it's a shared space and with one spoon. So we all have a responsibility to ensure that we take care of the space, this land, and so I would appreciate if you take a moment to honor the land and the Indigenous peoples in your area. And by doing so, it's acknowledging the land that's sustaining us, our physical being, and as well as respecting each other and the spiritual lives of our people and ancestors. So in terms of relational engagement, Louela and Michelle and I have been on a sort of a fellowship path, mentorship path for the past 5 years or so. And this image here is just to describe that experience. For myself, I've just been inspired both by Louela and Michelle for their engagement, specifically around how relational practice is articulated by Don and Varco, which are researchers in Victoria, Canada. And, the experience of the digital space is one that I've been working in fairly extensively since 2017. Our work is primarily within the RPN to BSCN group of students. So these are students who are practical nurses who are going back to school to get their degree. And they're doing this through a blended program, which means that they are doing their clinicals face-to-face and their theoretical courses are online. And so the fellowship has been led through the Associated Medical Services and the Registered Nurses Association of Ontario. And these organizations have really emphasized a focus on humanizing healthcare, especially within the technological changes we are all experiencing, and supporting projects such as the one we've been working on as a fellowship to support practitioners who are engaging in the conversations to improve student experience. And our focus has been on relational engagement in an online space. So this idea of where are you standing is something that, society for the longest time is, we've been engaging in various multiple media ways, and it really hasn't changed that much other than to say the diversity of the technology and the resources that we might be referring to. Specifically in our current context of a global pandemic, there's a significant change taking place in terms of how we are relating to one another. This idea of standing is just to acknowledge I think the current challenges that we're facing. The push to use online digital learning as a capacity for improving and enhancing access to education is well received. But there are significant changes to our ability to be relational in a digital space. I think of my experience as a young person, and it was a TV that was the emphasis, and Shel Silverstein's poem around Jimmy Jet and his TV set becoming a TV. This is sort of an example of what I would say is happening more and more as we are relating to our technology in ways it's hard to define ourselves from our digital selves, or trying to understand our capacity in a new space. And so just reflecting on that, asking maybe yourselves, how are you relating to the technology? Are you finding yourself balanced or at peace in these days? And this is a little bit of an analogy. We're using a description of a wave of the technology change that's taking place around us, and that is something that you might be very comfortable with. You might have a sense that you're riding along just fine. So you might be number 10, and I'll close my video for a second here. And 10 is Zen-like. Holding your own is sort of like somewhere in the middle, and then having a grasp of reality being on the far end. So think about yourself, and if we had a chance to meet in person, maybe we would engage about those experiences of where you're riding right now. So in terms of education and the wave of digital learning, in Canada in particular, these are some statistics that look at how important online or blended learning is within institutions. And this sort of circle graph down here at the bottom is indicating, fairly significant portions. And I would say through this pandemic that we have an even increased commitment to online spaces, that education has moved exponentially into an online space. And so as nursing faculty, as people who believe in engagement, we're looking at quite a changing context for nursing education. And so while the digital space can be very appealing to nurses, and particularly the students I described, bridging an education or maintaining employment while and family life while being in school is very appealing, as well as the flexibility of using the program at any time and anywhere. And so for us, I think the experience is the scale of change that's taken place. The nature of student engagement is quite different. And with that scale of enrollment going up, the pressures to meet those demands by institutions and faculty are challenging. And so, yeah, the consequences of this, the idea that the when we start to learn this way, we're using experiences of relationship that are happening asynchronously. So through different time and space, it might be daytime when I'm putting on a session, but it might be night when someone looks at it. How does that? How do we relate through those kinds of changes? Challenges specifically is I think you might be well aware is the complexity of human relationships. How do we visualize that as educators, and how do we advocate for relational engagement as an essential for the development of nursing students? That's something that we really strongly believe in. So for our work, the philosophical underpinnings have been really promoted through the work of Donan Varco. This is a wonderful resource to anyone interested in relational inquiry in nursing practice. And basically, the relational inquiry from this standpoint is looking at compassion, curiosity, corresponding competence and commitment as sort of 5 ontological capacities we try to acknowledge and enable amongst nursing students. And so this also attends very clearly to the lived experience in the complex context of student life. And there's some listed there, the context, as well as sort of uncovering the unknown and embracing uncertainty as a space for growth and development. So these are underpinnings to which we'd like to describe relational practice in an online space. And so the context is defined in three ways: sort of the intrapersonal, sort of the personal context, the interpersonal amongst and between colleagues and the people that we would be meeting with in the digital space, as well as the contextual. So what's going on and around people in their situations? How are they being influenced by the economy or society, legislation and such? So this is the context from a relational practice perspective of Donan Varco. And so in the online space and teaching in blended environments, the community of inquiry framework by Cleveland, Innes, Garrison, and Vaughan is a well-established model for how educational experiences can be described, in trying to create engagement of students in their presence through a social, cognitive, and a teaching presence. And so how do those aspects start to come alive. And what we've tried to apply is a relational lens onto this idea. And so creating this digital fluency and relational insight is a project that we're working on. Trying to envision what does online relational engagement look like, and how do those 5 C's, the compassion, curiosity, correspondence, competence, and commitment, integrate within the experience of a student engagement. And so this is the, just sort of a rough example of the kinds of conversations that we're having, and would invite you to share in if this is of interest to you. Trying to create social presence, cognitive presence, and build a teaching presence online. Often students are experiencing a very textual-based learning, discussion boards and such. The implications of having faculty who aren't full-time is another huge challenge for learning online, is the ability of staff and faculty to have the experience of engagement and the time and the compensation to make online engagement come alive. And that's so important for the relational experience of students. So here's, we're getting into a bit of the example now and just trying to illustrate the experience for students. And so, this is an analogy of the Yellow Brick Road and the journey that students are on. They're trying to get often from A to B. And at the end of the day, our vision is to have this thing called, impact the community, impact society, and nursing as a profession. And, for students, it's often the graduation, right? Getting to the end of a long journey. And so those two, perspectives between the faculty and as well the students who also can envision a future of engagement in their profession are sort of where we're headed towards. And so as an online instructor or faculty, we seem to be holding in some ways the keys or the gates to this experience. And if you've ever participated in a platform such as like they call it learning management platform, such as Moodle or Blackboard, these are structures that enable student engagement. And as a faculty person, I have an ability to engage with all kinds of data that's collected and basically enables me to see what does participation look like in a textual way. And so in some ways we have this idea that we're sort of the wizard holding on to all this information of our students' participation. And I would say in terms of online, there are these challenges, right? We are at risk of creating systems where students come in and go out in certain ways. And like I mentioned, the scale of enrollment being a challenge because of the mechanized nature of these learning management systems. Our engagements can be structured in ways that seem less intuitive or enabling for relational engagement. The flying monkeys are reminders of just, of our own sensibilities of how do we deal with privacy or the connections that we are having with digital entities and expectations around privacy and those kinds of things. And so our digital selves are becoming somewhat, it's changing the nature of our relationships. And so, yeah, the reality is that, I think this image is trying to say is that even though it might look like we have this all under some big umbrella and organized plan, we're really sort of trying to muddle through it ourselves and trying to define what are we doing in a way that's relational and engaging. And I think acknowledging that to students is very, very important, that we don't have the answer to these questions, but we need to work together on them. Shh, shh. Okay, bud. Stop. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's where we are trying to tie in these ideas of compassion and in particular what I'd like to stop your barking. You stop your barking. Oh my goodness. Compassion being understood to be a space of solidarity where people join together to explore and make sense of evolving life events. In the case of experiences of a technologically created virtual living space. That's the idea of compassion. Curiosity, competence, commitment, and corresponding. These are sort of the strategies that we'd like to envision. And I appreciate that even myself now, I'm challenged to relate to you that experience of engagement of nursing students in that way. But this this vision is something that we've put a lot of thought into. Trying to explore curricular shifts, trying to engage students in professional spaces such as there are associations like the RNAO, and acknowledging the work beyond just the classroom, and using a digital space can be very enhancing for this. And so, yeah, I think this is a picture of a river, actually, and it's on the Bow River in Calgary, Alberta. So this person is actually standing still, but the water is moving underneath. And I find it interesting in that, you know, they are standing still, but the water is moving. And I guess to me, that's an analogy of being able to find that balance where you can hold your own and you can sort of carve out your space on that wave and engage in ways that are beautiful and healthy and sustainable. These are important metaphors for me as I think about how much change has taken place in my educational work, and how much more work there needs to be done. I think we need to commit to relationality as a goal of our humanity, that we don't lose that focus, particularly within the nursing profession, because we are, you know, the whole basis of care is in relation with other people, and how can that be taught virtually? We really have to work at that on an ongoing basis. The model here at the top is referring to some scaffolding that I don't know if I can go back. Oh well, that is useful in terms of building in different pieces towards engagement. So here's our contact information. Feel free to reach out by email in particular to talk further. I know this was sort of a brief introduction to the conversation, but it is a wonderful opportunity to participate in this Tau Institute virtual conference. And it's just, you know, again, it's not how I would like it to be, but this is how it is. And if you're interested, please reach out. It would be a pleasure to speak to you. Have a great day.